And with that, welcome into KC Sports Night Streaming Edition. It is Tuesday here in Chiefs Kingdom, here in Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas, wherever you're watching us, or wherever you're watching us across the globe, because we know Marleah Campbell brings in the worldwide viewers.
Another day, another fantastic intro.
Here we go. Jared Koller here with MC Squared, and came up with that on the spot right there. I was thinking your initials.
That's a lot. Yeah.
MC, and then
That's
I'm
impressive.
like, wait a minute. I don't want to just say MC. I want to add the squared on it to show that I'm
I don't even
cool
know what
and
that
hip.
means.
All right, this has been a phenomenal start. If you're still watching or listening,
Thank you.
It gets better from this. Today, I'm excited about today's show because this is something we've done with Mark Palos, Kansas City native, something we've done with Brad Stevens, an adopted Kansas City native, I guess. And now we get to do it with another Kansas City native, Marleah Campbell. We get to talk about Kansas City sports through the years. We grew up here. We love Kansas City. We love our sports teams. And we get to talk about how far they've come and how we really are in the golden age of Kansas City sports in many ways, starting with, because it's baseball season, the Royals. Royals rained out today, so they'll play a doubleheader tomorrow. Also of note, Kansas State football at Big 12 Media Days today in Las Vegas. We'll have coverage of K-State and KU on tomorrow's show. So Wildcat fans, we're not leaving you out. We're just making it all college football tomorrow. So you've got that to look forward to. But right now, Marleah, talking some baseball here. I remember growing up going to the K, and I loved going to the K. Fun games. The Royals weren't particularly good, but I still enjoyed it. And then the fact that they got better made it that much better. But growing up as a Kansas City kid, did you go to many Royals games? Mm-hmm. What are your impressions before that 2014-15 renaissance?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, one of my first memories I have, period, is running the bases at the K when I was a kid. I don't know if they still do that.
On Sundays.
Do they?
Yeah.
Where kids can, after the game, everyone clears out, and then you get to just kind of run the bases, with your parents. So that's one of the first memories I have, period, in my entire life. And then we grew up going to a lot of games when I was a kid, and then whenever I'd come home from college, because I went to school in Wyoming, that would be kind of a tradition of ours every summer. So I've been going to those games since I was 5.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's funny because I graduated high school from Shawnee Mission West in 2014. And so I think I've told this story on the show with Scott before, but I remember during the 2015 run, I was watching no, it would have been 2014, so Game 7. I was watching the game in a little dorm room, kind of common area with myself, a Wyoming football player who went to Liberty North maybe, and then a Wyoming volleyball player who went to Olathe North. And it was just the three of us, the three Kansas City kids in our class that were at Wyoming. We're all watching that dreadful Game 7. It was
good. It was a good game.
Yeah, it was a great game.
I mean, back and forth, low scoring, and then had a chance to win it. So dreadful ending.
Yeah, and then I remember 2015. I couldn't go to the parade because I was in the middle of basketball season, or at least we were starting it, going through workouts and things. And I remember on the broadcast them saying this was not even a Wyoming broadcast, and they said, "Wow, the parade right now in Kansas City has more people than the entire population of the state of Wyoming." And I was in Wyoming, oh.
Yeah, there's your shout out.
My friends, I wish I could be there. But, so I got to watch, it's funny because I've watched most of the Royals, my entire life, hoping they'd get to that point. And then right when I left, was the Royal resurgence.
Well, that's where I think it's cool that so many people here in Kansas City, I do think there's a love affair between sports in this town, and the Royals are, one of the major sports teams, definitely, and the two at the Truman Sports Complex. And so many people grow up going to games, running the bases. They have those memories. But then to expand upon that, it's one thing to, go watch baseball, but to have memories that you will always have, outside of those just going to the game. You remember where you were for Game 7. You remember the playoff moments in 2014, whether you're in college in Wyoming or you're at the K in row 2.
Yeah.
And to have those shared experiences that, for the years to come, whenever people would talk to you outside of Kansas City, I went to school with a lot of people not from Kansas City, and when I said I'm from Kansas, they were like, "Oh, the Royals," They just, being on that stage in the World Series, that was really cool because to that point in Marleah and I's childhood, the Royals' 2014 run was the first playoff victory that we had ever seen of the Chiefs or Royals.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
So that's why that run was so special because Marleah. Now, we had KU basketball winning the national championship. We had Sporting Kansas City winning the MLS Cup. But out of the two at the Truman Sports Complex, that's why that 14 run, Marleah, I think was so magical.
Yeah, it was the first kind of turning of the page of like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like watching a team that actually, gets to the point of the season.
Yeah.
Another Royals memory I guess I'll throw in there was 2020 in the shortened pandemic season. That was my first opening day as a media member.
Oh, okay.
And they only let media, like there were 20 of us in the entire stadium. And it was so surreal.
Yeah.
We were all spaced out. I could probably name the people. And I remember, so there's a real like MLB baseball game going on in the K with 20 people watching it. We were like right above home plate, and it was just such a weird experience. And I remember Slugger was walking around with one of those sticks of like snacks,
Nice.
But it just had like paper, like a printed like popcorn thing and a printed like cotton candy. So just
weird
one of those
times.
like very weird. So fortunately been able to.
But that makes you also appreciate, right?
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate when there are fans that pack the stadium, and that's what I remember about the 2014 wild card game. Like.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
and that was the first playoff game I've ever been to. And I'm like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
It's like that first inning, like when the stadium got really loud after a strike, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like it was louder after James Shields threw a strike than at any point of any moment I'd ever witnessed at the K.
Yeah.
Like that's because when you pack, 40,000 in there. And then at the end of that game, I really remember genuinely not knowing how to feel. Like, because that was the first point of sports happiness in my life where they won a playoff game. I'd been used to heartbreak for the Royals not making the playoffs, and then the Chiefs, losing in spectacular fashion in the playoffs and just not knowing what that feeling was. And then after that, it was a dream. They sweep the Angels, they sweep the Orioles, get to Game 7.
Yeah.
And then it's one thing to make that a one-hit wonder. Then they go back and they win it all the next year. And I think it stands out more, Marleah, because some people look at it as a fluke, which I think is unfair. But it makes you appreciate because the success they didn't have before that and the success they haven't had after that.
Yeah.
Those 2 years really stand out, and I think you appreciate them more here in Kansas City because of the struggles that they've had up until this year.
Well, and it shows you how hard it is to get
Right.
there. And
Exactly.
also I would argue that the fact that it was back-to-back years proves, by definition it wasn't a fluke.
I think so.
But
and with the nature of a baseball season, like I think you can have a fluke run in the NCAA
Right.
tournament. Baseball, you got
Yeah.
to play 162 games. You got to win a series. It's like in football, it's one game. No, they had to win multiple playoff
yeah, it's
series.
your body of work. It's not an individual. As you mentioned, Cinderella thing kind of turning around. I think I know we should probably move on, but we could talk about this for the entire show. I think I've seen videos of you doing like little stand-ups on camera when you were a kid, right? Yeah.
The one you're referring to would be in 8th grade. My dad held the camcorder, and I filmed like I was a reporter. I was wearing a KU national championship hat. I don't know how professional that was, and a Billy Butler jersey. That was my fit. But I was like, hey, the Royals have been bad, but there's hope because of the guys that I then named: Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Will Myers, who the first two ended up being eventual Royals Hall of Famers. Will Myers, they trade for James Shields and Wade Davis, so that held up well. So, yeah, no,
That's got to be full circle for you to come back and now.
Oh no, I mean I don't
right?
take. You get paid. I don't know.
Yeah, you get paid.
It's just community service hours, volunteering. No, I'm incredibly lucky every day and grateful to be in this position, covering the teams that I love in the city that I love, and grateful for those Royals memories that we had, and that Royals baseball is here in Kansas City. The good news is that the Chiefs have also been pretty good over the last decade. That wasn't always the case, but Marleah, the Chiefs were never like the Royals in the sense that I always felt there was most of the time a level of competence and reason to be hopeful. I know they had a few down years, but it's not like the Royals where they lost 100 games in 3 straight years. They still had, I remember the Trent Green 2003 season where they started 10-0, finished 13-3, losing to the Colts, of course. They just didn't have the playoff success, but I felt they were relevant. What do you remember about watching the Chiefs as a kid before Andy Reid kind of created this new dynasty?
Yeah, well, I remember in 7th grade, if the Chiefs won on Sunday, we didn't have math homework on Monday, and we had a lot of math homework.
That's tough.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of my early childhood memories about that. But, I mean, I think it's a similar I guess, thread that we were just mentioning with the Royals. Like, it makes this period feel so much sweeter, having been part of this fan base,
Right.
like during the dog years, kind of. But as you mentioned, there are so many names to come out of that era that, like, you don't want to knock them, because, like, what phenomenal memories we have from those years as well.
I mean, Dante Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, the X Factor. You had Tony Gonzalez. You had Trent Green. You had Priest Holmes. Those are
a
guys.
lot of those guys are still around Kansas City too, like doing awesome things in this community.
Yeah. Did you go to many Chiefs games as a kid? I know that's a
Not
little
as much. No.
With baseball, it's a little bit easier and cheaper. But I remember the games I went to, just being blown away by the crowd and the decibel. And I think that's a cool thing for Kansas City kids to also, if you're fortunate enough to go to games, to really witness how loud it is. And it's a cool atmosphere.
Yeah. Quick plug, I do a podcast over on KC Sports Network called My Story, where I talk to some of those guys you mentioned. I've done interviews with Trent Green, Christian Okoye, Sean Barber, just a handful of those guys, where they kind of talk about, like, my story. It's their narration of their careers and everything. And I've learned some really cool stories that I had never heard before through that. So go listen to those. Christian Okoye is one of my personal favorites. I asked him, when did you realize you love football? Because if you know his background, he came from Nigeria and he originally played soccer, wanted to go into track and do track in the Olympics. And I said, well, when did you realize you love football? And he said, I hated football the entire time I played it. And, we've seen what he was able to do in the course of his career. So lots of interesting stories there.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And that's where, here in Kansas City, we become so obsessed with winning that, that's the standard, that's the expectation, but there's still a lot of good to come in the process and the journey to get there, even if you don't get the ultimate goal. And that was the case for, a lot of Chiefs teams that struggled until Andy Reid came, and the Chiefs finally won a playoff game for the first time in 20 years with Alex Smith down in Houston. And there's a lot of guys in that kind of middle period that I think stand the test of time, whether that's Derek Johnson, Eric Berry, Tamba Hali. Those are the guys but even like Dwayne Bowe, he had a great Chiefs career. And so they don't have Super Bowl rings now, but I think they helped build the foundation for what Chiefs Kingdom is now. And what that is now is a bona fide dynasty that Marleah. It's cool to see people get tired of the Chiefs, to not like the Chiefs, because that means the Chiefs have been good for longer than people want.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a special time to be here in Kansas City right now.
Well, and I'm just trying to soak it all in too, because I mentioned this on the show yesterday, but if you weren't watching, when we were at the Super Bowl, someone asked Patrick Mahomes, like, do you think you'll look back on these as the good old days?
Right.
And he was like, no, I know right now that these are the good old days, and I'm trying to make them last as long as possible.
And that's where I think Chiefs fans deserve that, though, because the support was there even before Patrick Mahomes. I don't think for the Chiefs this is a fair weather fan base. Would you? Growing up, I still feel like there was a lot of Chiefs jerseys around town. The attendance was there. Arrowhead was still great, even in those down years.
Yeah. Well, and I think fan bases that care also care when you lose. So it makes a difference, right? But it's been cool to watch. This city really just like really, really develop. I think about the NFL draft coming here, but that actually wasn't courtesy of the Chiefs. That process began in 2012.
Right. It
coincided with right after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, so a
Yeah.
lot of people were like, "Oh, and now the draft's coming here." But that process began a long time ago. But the Chiefs certainly put the city on the map in a lot of different ways.
I think because obviously the Royals had their championship success first, but football's bigger than baseball right now, especially on a global scale. And I think the Chiefs maybe didn't put them up, but have definitely elevated Kansas City. And to that point, also Travis Kelce and what he's done. But Kelce more off the field, but Mahomes being, compared to this generation's Michael Jordan, the fact that, we have this as when we're talking about eras, Marleah, there was a quarterback era where it went from Brody Croyle to Tyler Thigpen to Tyler Palco to Matt Castle to Brady Quinn to Kyle Orton. We watched a lot of bad quarterback play. So now to have the quarterback is pretty cool here in Kansas City. And the good news is, here in Kansas City, we've got the Royals, we've got the Chiefs, but we've also got some great college teams, both in basketball and football, especially right now. Of course, referring to the Kansas Jacks, the Missouri Tigers, and Kansas State Wildcats. Marleah, when I think of these three schools, I immediately go to 2007 Mizzou-Kansas border war football game at Arrowhead, where at the start of the game it was number 2 versus number 4 in the country, and the number 1 team in the country had lost that day. So Mizzou, after the win, became the number 1 team in the country, and if they beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, they would play for the national championship. That game, one of the biggest sporting events in recent Kansas City history, and then, of course, Kansas State, in their own right, has been amazing under Bill Snyder there, and now Chris Kleiman. I think we're pretty lucky to have 3 schools that have had some pretty awesome moments.
Yeah, what's funny is when you started talking about, like, I remember this game, I thought you were going to go 2012 basketball border war.
Yeah.
I was there.
Also great.
I remember it, like, so vividly. I remember they broke the decibel record at the time, which doesn't surprise me at all. Were you there?
No, but
Okay.
I'm so glad you brought up that game because Mizzou had a massive lead, and at that time, that was the last time we thought KU and MU would ever play. It was a bitter rivalry, and it was a great game. And then, of course, it comes down to Thomas Robinson with an iconic block that Mizzou fans think was a foul, KU fans think was a block, and either way, that game was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I was there.
You were there?
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember it
That's
so
cool.
vividly. It would have been my sophomore and junior year of high school.
That's cool.
But so my dad went to Kansas, and so I grew up going to Allen Fieldhouse and stuff when I was a kid. And so, it's been cool. I mean, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, probably off camera, but it's so cool to be able to, like, cover the teams you grew up watching, and to be kind of in the right spot at the right time. I got to cover a KU national championship.
Right, you and I were both in New
2022.
Orleans.
We were both in New Orleans. Now we're both in Las Vegas, and for the Super Bowl this past year. And, like, it takes a lot of, timing to be in the right place at the right time when you're reporting. Like, a lot of really talented reporters go their entire careers without getting those opportunities. So definitely really approaching every
and we'll
day
get to
with
cover a
gratitude.
Mizzou national championship this coming year.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go.
No, it's cool that I think all 3 of these teams, obviously the outlier over these eras has been Kansas football not holding its own, but now that they had that small period with Mark Mangino, and now with Lance Leipold, that they're kind of back up with the pack. But I don't know how common it is that really all 3 programs for both men's basketball and football have had strong moments, whether that's Kansas State winning the Big 12, whether it's Mizzou going to multiple SEC title games, Big 12 title games, winning a handful of Cotton Bowls.
K-State's Elite 8 run 2 years ago.
Yes, in basketball, KU basketball, of course, and then Mizzou, it would be the next lowest as far as basketball success, but they won a tournament game in Dennis Gates' first year. And I think what sticks out the most, though, Marleah, is that I think all 3 fan bases are really great.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Am I being a homer in saying that?
No, and I think you have a pretty good split in Kansas City, too, which makes it fun. Because
right, exactly.
2 of those schools are 2 hours away. Lawrence is 30, 45 minutes, depending on where you're at. But, it's been cool how those alumni bases kind of all divulge on Kansas City.
What was it like for you going to school? Did you feel like, well, I guess, were there a lot of Mizzou fans, or how did the split kind of for you growing up with the 3 schools?
Okay, I thought you meant in college. I was like, at Wyoming.
Well, no, not right. Growing up.
Yeah. Growing up, I would say it was pretty split KU K-State, but I did have a lot of friends that for school went to Mizzou, which is what you did as well, I think.
Right, yeah.
And especially now, Mizzou has a great journalism school, so a lot of our peers went there.
Sure.
And but yeah, I would say, like, growing up, it was pretty 50-50. But I remember
with
that
KU K-State.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember those rivalries being, like, heated when we were kids.
That's where I felt there were more KU fans, but I felt the Mizzou fans were so passionate. And I grew up. I went to Staley High School, so shout out Fox Hill Elementary, shout out Newmark Middle School. That's where I think of that. But I remember just the rivalries with the teachers.
Well, so you were on the Missouri side of the
right,
state line.
exactly. Yeah. And I remember the students, whenever there was a big game, it's all anyone was talking about the next day. Because this was also before the Chiefs and Royals were really that relevant, like when you and I were growing up in this period. Like, I remember I won an award in 6th grade for being the biggest KU fan at school.
I didn't know that.
Little did they know I would betray everyone and go to the rival Mizzou for college.
Yeah.
But I remember not wanting to go to school the day after KU lost to Mizzou in that football game because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to hear it all day.
Yeah.
And
this is pre-social media too, so
right.
save it all up for seeing them in person at school the next day.
Yeah. So, but I think that makes for a cool experience that you've got so many different fan bases in this melting pot that I think are all 3 great fan bases. So, and last but not least, this is also the soccer capital of America, Marleah. I don't know if you heard that or not.
I have.
But we have some great soccer teams too.
Yeah.
Of course, the Kansas City Wizards coming up is one of the premier MLS franchises that Lamar Hunt founded, and then making the switch over to Sporting Kansas City and winning the MLS Cup with Matt Beasler, Graham Zusi, Aurelian Collin, Jimmy Nielsen in goal back in 2013, that great penalty kick shootout. The same day as Mizzou played in the SEC championship game against Auburn, oddly enough. Crazy sports day if you think about it now. That SEC championship game and the MLS Cup final on the same day. Yeah. But then the Kansas City Current come to town, and they just have so much success here early on, both first before moving to CPKC, but now with the new stadium and the role they're on this year. Hopefully they can keep it going. And I think those two franchises and the success they've had and the fan support they've had is why we're going to have the World Cup here in 2026. So it's a great soccer town too.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that last bullet point on that list speaks to just like how passionate fans are in this area. You think anytime you watch like a big soccer broadcast, they're always cutting to the Power and Light cam feed. And
that dates back like 2014.
Yeah,
that's something I asked Graham Zusi about a couple weeks ago. It's funny. I asked him because in 2014 in the World Cup, he had a game-winning assist for Team USA to John Brooks on that iconic header. And I'm like, hey, that was a decade ago. What do you remember about that moment? He didn't really answer it. He was kind of like, well, those are great moments to look back on. And I remember seeing, like watching the replays of that game, and it showed Kansas City going crazy. Like that was the first replay. And I think, Marleah, again, that was at a time where Kansas City wasn't always in the national spotlight. So for soccer fans to show out in that way was really cool then and helped us get to where we are now.
Yeah, and then the Current coming here is just massive. I mean, we've talked about this a lot in the last year, but like CPKC Stadium, the first stadium built for a professional women's sports team in the world that anyone knows of. I mean, that speaks for itself. Pretty phenomenal. And the success they've had on the pitch, too. I mean, they're top of the NWSL standings, if not slightly below with that loss to the Pride. But they've had a season where they made the NWSL championship, had a down year last year, and now, we're hosting the NWSL championship this upcoming fall.
Yep.
So not only have they come to Kansas City, not only have they shown a financial commitment by building this stadium in Kansas City, but now they're performing on the pitch as well with results immediately, and doing it the right way. I know they're really good about like community outreach and everything, so special advocacy.
Yeah, which I think they're really following in Sporting shoes in that regard, that Sporting has always been really great in the community, all for these pro franchises, but I think Sporting had to work. I think Sporting in many ways walked so the Current could run, in the fact of building a soccer fan base, right? As far as building, because soccer wasn't, you go back to the 80s, pro soccer wasn't even really a thing. And in the 90s, they're starting up. The 2000s, you're competing with the Chiefs and Royals to the point where I feel like in the 2010s, Marleah, Sporting Kansas City at their peak, they're right up there with the Chiefs and the Royals. Now, maybe when they're down, maybe it's not there, but I think this town loves its soccer, especially when they're winning. And that's something I've always felt, because I think there's high levels of soccer. I think there's a lot of players from Kansas City that have gone on to, Matt Beasler, of course, being the gold standard, but on the women's side, Jenna Weinbrenner and Cece Kaiser that have done well. So I think that starts at the youth level. Did you play youth soccer, or are you strictly basketball?
When I was like a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think
it's really popular in Kansas City, though.
I think most people in this town played soccer at some point, which for a Midwest town, I think is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
So we've gone through these eras. What are you looking forward to over the next era of Kansas City sports? Is there anything that jumps out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, everything on this list. I think like the most immediate answer that comes to mind is seeing a second Royal resurgence.
Okay.
Last year with the 106 losses, we kept talking about like it's an evaluation year, and that kind of got, tedious to hear. But the turnaround has been quick. This year is showing a lot of promise. You have a lot of young talent in that clubhouse with guys like Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino. MJ Melendez struggling a little bit this year, but certainly has had
Have you
flashes.
been to a Major League Baseball playoff game before?
No.
So that's why I think
love
that.
to cover one of those. Also, how fun will it be this fall if we have a Blue October?
Oh my God,
Chiefs, NWSL game in Kansas City with the Current potentially playing in it at this rate.
And Sporting if they never lose again.
And 3 college football teams who could potentially be in the top 25. Like, it's just, we're going to have an electric fall.
Oh my gosh, that's a great point. Because, I think most fans' first answer would, be to the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. But I think you bringing that for the Royals is interesting, because I think part of it is you want to feel that playoff atmosphere that you saw on TV, and you want to remember what it's like in this town because we haven't had that in a while, right?
And they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right?
Right.
Like, they haven't been good at the same time, so it'd be nice to kind of have playoff baseball and football at the same time.
Maybe it's in Marleah's control. Probably not. Marleah would love for both to happen, so it's not like you have to pick. But no, I think playoff baseball is so unique in part because it's every day. With the Chiefs, we have a week of build-up and a week of reaction between the games. With the Royals, they go out and play Monday. Guess what? Win or lose, they're playing Tuesday, which is great if you lose because you can move the page. And it's great if you win because you're like, man, we just won and now we get to do it again tomorrow. Let's go. You don't have to wait. So that's why, no, I think you're right. Playoff baseball would be awesome. A Chiefs dynasty would be awesome. We've never had the Chiefs and Royals this good at the same time. Mm-hmm. I don't know how the city's going to react. I don't know how we're going to react. I don't know if I can handle that, Marleah.
And Super Bowl's coming up in New Orleans. You and I were just there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So we know our way around the Superdome at this point. So, yeah, fingers crossed.
I'm not a...
Roughly.
Yeah, I
That's
don't...
a whole can of worms.
I don't love New Orleans, to be honest with you, as far as a host. I think it's great to go as a fan. I'm not exactly fired up about working it. But no, hey, listen, if the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl, that's incredible. And you mentioned our college teams. Man... This is the most exciting college football season,
this is
I
definitely
think.
The best those three teams have been at the same time.
Because
last year,
when KU and MU were in the top 5, Kansas State was kind of struggling a little bit. So I think it's because even last year they were really good, but that, MU and KU kind of even exceeded expectations. Going into this year, all three have legitimate dreams that are realistic, I think, to make the college football
KU and
playoff.
K-State are both in the top 4 preseason rankings in Big 12 and an expanded Big 12.
Right, and the Mizzou's in the top 10 of the country.
Exactly.
But I think all three could make the college football playoff because 12 teams get in. And Matt, that on Saturday, you got Chiefs on Sunday. You're coming off a Royals World Series.
It's going to be busy. It's going to be a good busy.
I'm fired up. So, yeah. All right. Marleah Campbell, Jared Koller, Kansas City natives. We love it here, and we love you for watching and listening and being a part of this Kansas City sports renaissance. This really is the golden era. Who knows what the next few eras will hold, so we thank you for being a part of our journey on this ride. We wouldn't have jobs if we didn't have people that watched us here on the stream on KC Sports Night on the weekends at 10:30. And training camp coverage starts a week from today. So thank you for joining us on this awesome ride. Marleah, thanks for hanging out. James Shields, salute. And we'll see you on the other side, friends.